a dangerous escalation of tension in an already exceptionally volatile region. The Kremlin is blaming Israel after a Russian reconnaissance aircraft was shot down by a Syrian missile. 15 people were on board the plane when it was hit late Monday over the Mediterranean. There were no survivors. The Russian military says 4 Israeli fighter jets were using the Russian plane as a shield as they attacked targets in northwestern Syria. Russia's defense minister says Israel is fully to blame. The Israeli military says the Syrian government is fully responsible for what happened. Joining me now is Robert Riggs, associate professor and Middle East specialist at the University of Bridgeport. Professor, what do you make of what happened? How do you think this happened?
Well, this is a he said, she said situation in which the Russians are saying that the Israeli planes in the midst of their attack on a what they say was a target that was going to send weapons to the Hezbollah in Lebanon, that they were flying very closely to a Russian jet, and then that they did not properly warn the Russian military in time to get that Russian jet out of the way. Whereas the Israelis are saying, no, our jets were already back in Israeli airspace when the Syrian military fired on this jet. So it's a little unclear what actually happened, but what we do know is that the Russian jet was shot down and that 15 people died.
What was the Russian plane doing over Syria?
Well, the Russian plane was a reconnaissance plane, so we can assume that it was supporting the Russian Air Force in their support of the Syrian government, because they've been doing that for now 3 years. So that's the reason the Russians were there.
What do you expect could be the ramifications of this, the fact that Israel is being blamed?
Well, I think that the Israelis are not, they apologized publicly, or at least they said they were sorry for the loss of Russian life. And Putin said he was going to beef up security for all Russian military personnel in Syria. But neither group seems to want to escalate this any further. The Israelis need to be able to to have free range to use Syrian airspace to attack what they consider threats from Iran and Hezbollah. And Russia isn't really interested in getting into a military conflict with Israel either. So I don't think it's going to escalate much further than this.
Are you surprised? I mean, you've got so many actors, so many players, and so much happening there. Are you surprised that something like this hasn't happened sooner?
I am a little bit surprised. You have the U.S. military involved in Syria. You have the Russian military. You have the Turkish Air Force flying around the north, and you have Israel. All 4 of those countries have very powerful and high-tech air forces. So it's actually fairly impressive that they've been able to all communicate despite being on very different sides, and not to mention the Syrian Air Force as well. So it is quite surprising there hasn't been more of these types of incidents in the last 5 to 6 years.
Robert Riggs, associate professor and Middle East specialist at the University of Bridgeport. Thank you.
Thank you.